Psychological evolution from victim to survivor. The shift from processing the raw video data of my 3-hour narcissistic abuse documentary to my current philosophical baseline represents a profound psychological transition. It marks the precise coordinates where acute survival and cognitive containment have finally evolved into integrated, clinical clarity. My past work was a direct product of an active trauma response, an externalized hard drive born from the necessity to freeze a volatile, invalidating reality so that my short-term memory could safely process it. Today, through Sunset Mental Health, that raw confusion has been systematically re-engineered. The domestic warfare that once held my nervous system hostage has been transformed into the deliberate, analytical scaffolding of my absolute autonomy. The counselor's paradox and cortisol hijacking. When I look back at the documentary footage of that Christmas 2023 conflict, I recognize a version of myself operating in absolute shock. I was trapped in a state of cognitive bewilderment, struggling under the massive cortisol spike of a relationship defined by cluster B personality pathology. My commentary at the time reflected a deep internal shame. As a professional trained in psychology and sociology, I was plagued by a counselor's paradox, wondering how I could perfectly understand the textbook definitions of emotional devaluation and trauma bonds, yet fail to shield my own heart from them in reality. The documentary was my radical intervention against my own mind. By hard-coding that unerasable baseline of reality, I shattered the cognitive dissonance, allowing me to fully map how a hypervigilant brain can be hijacked by an environment devoid of emotional insight or remorse.
Reclaiming radical empathy. This transition has allowed me to re-engineer what I once bitterly identified as my greatest vulnerability, my tendency to act as the perfect compliant victim. In the depths of that domestic captivity, my natural inclination toward grace, Christian reconciliation, and empathy was weaponized against me, forcing me to walk on eggshells and surrender my boundaries just to maintain a fragile peace. Today, I have reclaimed that trait and transformed it into the clinical cornerstone I call radical empathy. I no longer allow my capacity for deep validation to be exploited by individuals incapable of introspection. Instead, I channel it deliberately toward those fighting severe, authentic psychological crises. I have taken the exact mechanism that was used to devalue me and turned it into a clinical necessity for saving lives. Grounding in resilient truth. Ultimately, moving past the protective void of dissociation has anchored me firmly in a framework of resilient truth. For nearly a decade, my mind coped with extreme, chaotic projections by disconnecting consciousness from an intolerable reality. Stepping out of that fog required an uncompromising commitment to empirical evidence and absolute intellectual honesty, a demand that eventually forced me to look past the wishful thinking of theological palliatives and confront the structural reality of neurological damage. I now recognize that I was profoundly disabled by my immediate domestic environment long before I ever stepped onto a military battlefield. By honoring the inner compass that points toward kindness and dignity despite years of systemic loss, my creative and professional pursuits are no longer separate from my survival. They are the active proof that I have reclaimed my lens, ensuring that no one else has to fight these psychological battles entirely in the dark.